comic book industry reckons with abuse claims. Quote, I don't want this to happen to anyone else. End quote. Wow, it sounds like something terrible. Well, interesting to actually look at what the details are, even of just what the accusations are, not even a question of what did or didn't happen. Interesting article in Hollywood Reporter. We will get into it. If you want to support my work, collegeofthedead.com, get a copy of Graduation Day, 48-page full-color graphic novel series, and sign up at epicmermaids.com for the email for The Mermaids, an epic mermaid fantasy Game of Thrones with mermaids, coming out soon. Back to the article. Comic book industry reckons with abuse claims. Okay, so someone's quoted here saying, I don't want this to happen to anyone else. Sounds pretty serious. If you look at Catwoman, if that's who this is, they seem very upset. So what happened that Catwoman is so depressed? Well, let's go on. As Marvel, DC, and Dark Horse cut ties with creators, calls grow for more new protections in a largely freelance industry. Which is to say that comic book writers and artists work on a freelance basis, not as regular W-2 employees. But SJWs have been fighting for a long time, or whatever is a long time, in their years, 2 years, 3 years, to try to get ridiculous overpaid W-2 jobs with guaranteed steady pay and steady work, regardless of the quality of their work. And maybe this is a way they can pull that off. Quote, who has enough power to call out bad behavior without losing their job? End quote. There is a human resources department at every one of these companies. So let's see. Taki Soma was surprised when a friend messaged her in June to say something big was brewing. 15 years earlier, Soma, a Hugo-nominated comic book writer and artist. Okay, so she got a nomination. That's okay. Reported to police that she was sexually assaulted by Charles Brownstein, executive editor of the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund, a nonprofit advisory board that includes heavyweights such as Neil Gaiman, Sin City creator Frank Miller, and publisher Jim Lee. The details of the alleged 2005 assault at an Ohio convention have been publicly available online for years, and Brownstein, who called the evening in which he allegedly groped Soma. You see? So here they're saying, and it's an alleged assault. Here they're just saying, well, he just groped her. Which he doesn't admit that he did. What he says he did was he feigned lifting up her shirt. Didn't lift up her shirt, he claims. And they were drinking. They were in a hot tub. There was one other witness, but her witness is not coming forward for some reason. So there are details on this. I don't want to spend a lot of time going into this, but you can look up these details. This was written in 2006, so this goes back to details of what was happening. But basically, it was 2005. It was after a convention. There were a bunch of them partying at a pool and in a hot tub, and this guy, Brownstein, who looks like he's a soy monster, was drunk. So were a lot of other people. I don't know if she was drinking or not, whatever. They were in a hot tub together somehow. And he feigned lifting up her shirt, according to him. According to her, he grabbed her boob and wouldn't let go of it. And then she called the police. And that's what she says he did. And the result of the police was they said there was not enough witnesses or evidence to pursue anything. Okay. So getting back to it. He said it was a stupid drunken prank and had remained at his job where he led the organization in advocating for First Amendment rights for comic creators for another 15 years. That changed in June 22nd with the executive resigning following a renewed focus on alleged abuses within the comic industry. Quote, it felt incredible, but also enraging because it should have happened 15 years ago, says Soma, who believes that she lost out on work after speaking up. Meaning that she's feeling like, well, I didn't get freelance work that I was entitled to because I accused this guy publicly and my witness wouldn't back me up. And what she accused him of was she accused him of grabbing her boob, not letting go, and then trying to lift up her shirt. That's her accusation. Okay. Brownstein's departure was part of a reckoning that has affected the comic book industry since June, with multiple high-profile creators having been accused of abusive or exploitive behavior. Such publishers as Marvel, DC, and Dark Horse have quietly severed ties with several of the accused, even as they grapple themselves with how to reform their industry from within. How can they reform their industry from within? Maybe tell these creators, stop getting drunk and partying with each other, because things happen at parties, and some of them are horrific and illegal and easy for the police to act on because there's physical evidence of it and multiple witnesses who are willing to come forward. So don't be part of these social parties, and that should be an instruction to all these freelancers. Don't do it. Don't get drunk with and party with or be around these people. Stick to your own personal relationships and keep them separate from your work relationships. That's how you'd grapple with this, right? That's how you do it. The Hollywood Reporter has learned that the projects canceled include a Batman story. These are canceled projects related to accusations. From the superstar, writer, creator of Netflix, Castlevania, Warren Ellis, who has been accused of sexual harassment and abuse by multiple women. Sexual harassment and abuse by multiple women. So now you have to take a departure to this website with these women at somanyofus.com talking about what this abuse and harassment is. Being accused of abuse and harassment. So none of them allege that there was any activity with any people who were underage. None of them allege, when you say abuse and harassment, anything actionable legally whatsoever, except, and I have to laugh because this is nonsensical. There's a statement here that says, we were consciously manipulated with positive and negative reinforcement, gaslighting, and other techniques of control which leave lasting psychological damage. Now, lasting psychological damage is nothing to sneeze at. I will have a link to this article. You can look at their claims. You can look at their stories. What you'll find is there are women that Warren Ellis pays attention to per their account that then go on and say, oh, I was abused by my father. I was physically tortured by him. I mean, things like that, where I got out of this horrible, depressing relationship where this person was horribly abusive to me. But they're not even talking about Warren Ellis. They're talking about other relationships. So they're saying that he's leaving psychological damage, but they clearly have, not all of them, but look at the stories for yourself, clearly have other horrible things that happened in their lives. No one's saying it's their fault. It's just that those things did happen. They are severe, but they're blaming him for lasting psychological damage. Warren Ellis's chronic duplicity, not even occasional, duplicity and manipulation, particularly of young, although apparently legal, because it is, and vulnerable individuals, often rendered, now this is a horrific claim, rendering informed consent impossible. That's not an appropriate claim. That's an actionable claim where you can say, excuse me, when you're saying there's no informed consent, you're implying a crime. There is no such crime. There's no such crime. Or they can go ahead and they can make that claim. They can go file with the police department and say, this is what they claim he did. There's a series of these things. Should I point out the most ridiculous ones? Probably. He often lies about his personal relationship status. Creates the illusion of safety in friendship, often positions himself as a mentor and guide. Makes the target feel unique with constant compliments, interest, and systematic frequent contact, and other habit-forming techniques. Uses self-deprecating statements, both privately and publicly, to elicit compliments. according to them. Typically juggles multiple targets while insinuating they are the only one. People do that. I don't think that's a crime. In some cases, engages in hypnotism. Okay. Abrupt termination of relationship without communication, ghosting, meaning he just blows them off if he loses interest in them or they become uninteresting people. So okay. So that goes back to what abuse and harassment Warren Ellis has been accused of. Sources say that while Ellis has completed work on the upcoming season of Castlevania, he will not be back for potential future seasons. DC also jettisoned a digital project from artist Cameron Stewart, known for his work on Catwoman, after model Aviva Artsy tweeted that she'd been groomed by Stewart when she was 16 and he was in his 30s. Exactly what they mean with the grooming, I don't have that detailed story. I don't know. If he interacted with someone who is underage, you really should not be doing that. And as far as grooming, I don't know what he did. Also facing accusations of grooming young comics fans in the industry hopefuls was Jason Latour, co-creator of Marvel's Spider-Gwen. The fan-favorite hero voiced by Haley Steinfeld in the Oscar-winning Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Marvel sources tell THR, Hollywood Reporter, that the company has no plans with the creator. Okay, no plans. Dark Horse Comics fired longtime Hellboy editor Scott Alley after sexual abuse allegations from a co-worker. Ellis acknowledges mistakes in a June statement, but said, "I have never consciously coerced, manipulated, or abused anyone, nor have I ever assaulted anybody," though they want to accuse him of it, I guess. Latour, Alley, and Stewart haven't responded publicly to the claims. While the industry has become a lucrative idea factory for the powers Disney's Marvel Studios and Warner Brothers' stable of DC films, it has struggled to quickly deal with abuse allegations. The comics industry relies on informal networks of gatekeepers, okay, such as editorial staff or established freelance creators, rather than agents, to bring in new talent. It's a system, observers say, creates an unbalanced power dynamic that can lead to abuse. Okay, so this is about changing a power dynamic to fully protect people who just want to work in comics. Okay. I mean, the industry's collapsing. So now they're supposed to be creating a new power dynamic that protects people from, if you're getting drunk at a party, that everyone that you're getting drunk with and partying with might not put their hands on you. There's no way to protect against that, obviously. There's no powerful agent dynamic. That if you... Obviously, there are unlimited stories of people being attacked at all levels in Hollywood. So the fact that they're going to create a Hollywood system doesn't necessarily sound like things are going to really be improving. Quote, "When new people get brought in, they're brought in by people who are already working," says comic book writer Kelly Sue DeConnick, whose work on Captain Marvel helped inspire the $1.12 billion grossing Brie Larson film, which was a pretty terrible film. If you liked it, good for you. Quote, "There's no traditional ladder, so the way people have gotten in is through these powerful gatekeepers. A lot of these powerful gatekeepers are super lovely," per her decision and observation. "But there ought to be another way." Yet how about the Hollywood system? That worked really, really great for the victims of Roman Polanski, right? DeConnick, who acknowledges that she herself is a gatekeeper, okay, is among those who've suggested that comic book publishers require creative talent to use agents and advocate on their behalf. There isn't enough money to pay an agent to advocate on anyone's behalf in comic books. There's not enough money. There are agents for comic book creators. There are. If you're good enough, they'll hire you, and they seek to make about 10% off your work. Sometimes agents have more exploitive financial relationships than 10%. But there are agencies. But to work for an agency, you do need to submit your work and it has to actually be very good because it's competitive with other people that are submitting work. If you want to know what comic book agents are and how they already exist, you can Google comic book agency and you'll find a few of them. If you can't, contact me. I'll point you in the direction of some. I'm just not looking to promote comic book agencies at the moment. As is done in the film and TV industry, if something like that were available, it would decrease the power of some of the gatekeepers. Yeah, it would pass them to the agents who decide who does and doesn't get work. Notes DeConnick, who also suggests young creators hire attorneys to protect their financial interests. I'm laughing at that because there's no financial interest. To hire attorneys actually costs money because they're professionals. So you have to pay them a professional rate. The least you will pay an attorney is $100 per hour. That is the least you will pay them. And what does the work pay for writing a bad script or even a great script for a comic book or doing the art? It's usually not even a six-figure income on a low six-figure income. It's not. So how are you going to hire these attorneys and agents? Again, there are some agents, but in comics, but they don't make a lot of money, and the people that work for them usually don't make a lot of money. There are a couple that have done very well, bringing in foreign talent like from Brazil. These people know nothing about the industry. While such publishers as Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, and others dominant in the comic store specialty market have shied away from any organized system to find or manage talent, the idea is not unfamiliar to them. DC started an annual talent workshop classes in 2015 to formalize working practices for newcomers, though the program quietly ended in 2018. Predatory behavior has been a problem within the comic book industry for decades. Not in film, though. Everything has been great in film. Don't look up any stories from film. The film industry, because, that's all very nice. It's all been very nice. Quite the opposite. Stories about Jules Schwartz, the late editor credited with DC's superhero revivals in the 1950s, that would inspire the creation of Fantastic Four, the entire Marvel Universe. I'd never heard that. Okay. Julie Schwartz is a legendary, great editorial force in comic books. Multiple comic book professionals like Sandman artist Colleen Doran have spoken out about harassment by him. Quote, I'm laughing because it's like I've never heard of this. If it's true, that's really terrible. That's like, this is something that goes on in every workplace. So you're not going to change every workplace unless you just basically let everything be run by cancel culture hate mobs who can just decide who they want to destroy on a weekly basis. One of the bigger problems is the people on staff at comics companies are very, 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 very small percentage of the industry, says former DC editor Janelle Asseline. I wonder what she's working on now. So even if they were doing the most effective training that they possibly could, which I don't think they're doing, okay? But even if they were, there are still a lot of people in the industry who aren't getting that training because so much of the industry is people who are freelance. Stop associating with scary freelancers that you don't want to be around. And if you say like, yeah, but I like to go to those parties and get drunk and network with people, well, don't do that. It's too risky for you. It's too risky for anybody who feels like it's a dangerous environment. But if you think you can go socialize and get drunk with people at parties and that's how you're going to find work, don't use that kind of socialization. It's a dirty business to do things like that. Get work based on actually being really good at what you're doing. Stop trying to get away from merit. The merit of your work speaks for itself. There are new people that come into the comic book industry that show samples that are excellent samples, or can show samples to another creator who does have a good relationship, or even a comic book agent, as I mentioned before. And you can show the work, and the work is clearly great. And if the work's clearly great, people are going to pay you. But if you're trying to get in without merit, if you're trying to get in and just be, hey, I'm that person who's funny and drunk at parties, could you please get me work? No, there's no safe environment for you if that's how you're seeking work. In any industry, and you know that. So don't work that way. Produce excellent work. If you can find someone who can help you, by all means, that's great. But if you're finding people who are helping you while being drunk at parties with them, those people shouldn't be helping you. And if you want to go that way, it's very risky. Obviously, look at these people who claim they were terrorized. While many in the industry are freelancers, they're required to live up to the demands of editors and executives to keep working. Quote, comics is a small industry, and you could lose your career by speaking out. You could lose your... Says Madeline Green, one of the many who claims they were abused by Ellis. Quote, who has enough power to call out bad behavior without losing their job? How do we... Well, you're not going to lose... No one loses their job by calling out bad behavior. It's not been documented. So I would like to see documentations of that, of someone who's calling out bad behavior. It looks like someone called out bad behavior and Ellis lost some jobs. I haven't heard about Madeline Green losing jobs. And maybe it's true, so go ahead. Add it to me at Comics We Love at Twitter, and this way I can kind of learn about people losing their job for making bad accusations. But it's got to be more than just, well, I think so. Like, you have to actually prove that, because we can prove that Ellis lost jobs based on these accusations. His creation, Castlevania, apparently, he can't work on anymore. Green is one of the more than 100 women and non-binary people identifying as people who are whatever behind, quotes, SoManyOfUs.com, which I'll provide a link to and I was reading from earlier. Ellis had allegedly groomed across 2 decades. Groomed. Again, that word. He communicated with people. Some of the people were younger than him. None of the people were under the legal age of anything. The majority work outside of the comics industry but are aware of the need to create change inside of it. Quote, we were all hurt, but what could we do with that pain? See, professional? Again, these are stories where, read their stories. They openly admit they were like physically, mentally, in every way terrorized by other family members and other relationships. That's not what he did. Says Sarah Deaton, another of the site's members. What did we want to see happen? One of the things we kept hearing was, I don't want this to happen to anyone else. Everything else just grew from there. Like, they don't want anything else that bad to happen to anybody. Well, this is life. Bad things do happen. There's no way to protect people from the world except to have good parents and learn how to stay away from people that you should not be around. Dangerous people who don't share your values. So many of us takes a proactive approach to sexual harassment with open accusations and abuse, pairing personal testimonials and alleged examples of Ellis's behavior with definitions of tactics like grooming, their own definitions, coercion, and gaslighting. As Zoetica Ebb, one of the site's core editors, puts it, what we've done offers others experiencing systematic abuse sort of a template for coming forward. What they've done is actually provided a list of things that Warren Ellis did and categorized into a how-to manual to fool people who are looking for career advancement and for free editing help to take advantage of them if they don't want to be in a sexual relationship with a professional free mentor. There are also editors that if you want help with your work, you actually pay them. You pay them with money. And these editors, they charge money, and then they help writers get better, and sometimes can help them get professional opportunities. So if you want that for free, you're asking for something for nothing. There's nothing that someone should be offering like, well, hey, I'm going to offer you my friendship in exchange for all of this professional help. That it doesn't work that way. Nothing works that way. Just that, like, you can't ask people to volunteer their time, their professional skill set. You can, but you can't expect to get it back in return. Like, they can't do that. They have to charge for their work, like a doctor or a lawyer charges for services. As Hollywood seeks to improve inclusion on screen and behind the camera, some creators of comics that might inspire the next blockbuster, they might, have opted to leave those publishers. Oh my God. One of those creators is Spike. Hey, Spike. Spike Trotman, who founded the indie publisher Iron Circus Comics, which is finding success outside of the comic book mainstream served by comic shops throughout North America. If you look at the quality of what is being produced at Iron Circus Comics, let's take a look. I'm sure it's fantastic. Iron Circus Comics, strange and amazing. Here it goes. This could be the next hit. So let's take a look at what Spike is doing. All right. This is what Spike is doing. Dirty old ladies. Okay. And retailers can stock Iron Spike comics. So if you're interested in this Iron Circus Comics, here's how you can find it, and you can support Spike's important work. Quote, let's see what Spike says. Imagine a restaurant. One day, one of the line cooks, in full view of the rest of the kitchen, spits in someone's food, says Trotman, okay? You can fire the cook for spitting in the food, but the fact that they think they can, without consequence, in front of all these people, the fact that they can commit this grievous, disgusting act in full view of all their colleagues means they're doing it with the expectation that their colleagues will not say anything. I don't know what Spike is talking about. Few specifics, but again, Iron Circus Comics, probably, okay, what is she doing? We've got look at this. We've got 2 new books in our store. First, there's the completely curvy Sylvian Migdal's sexy, hilarious, bizarre, fantastic adventure comic, and is compiled and colored for the first time, all 520 pages of it. This is an adults-only epic with the joyful, inspiring sense that defies comparison. So it's adults only. Okay, so it's pornographic. All right, good for you, Spike. I don't think that's going to be the next hit in Hollywood. At least I hope it isn't. Not because I don't like Spike, just because we probably don't need more of that in Hollywood. Few specifics have been revealed that publishers are working to create behavior guidelines among editorial employees. Let's hope that includes behavior guidelines such as cancel culture hate mobs, with Dark Horse telling THR that it will use a third party to address complaints in addition to bringing in external HR consultants. Despite waiting you know what they're going to find with this stupidity, Spike? Just like I'm talking to Spike, what they're going to find is cancel culture actually hate mobs on Twitter. Like, that's not going to be accepted. So what you guys are pushing to do, you're actually going to find yourself that, you know, all of your little hidden whisper network cancel culture nonsense is going to be called out. You're going to create your own destruction with this. So congratulations. Despite waiting 15 years, Soma is optimistic about the industry's future. Quote, change is coming, and as long as people are vocal about it and actions are put in place, I think there's a lot of hope. This shows comic books revenue shift, which is interesting. As the industry rebuilds after years of sales declines, a new demographic has emerged that is seeking out stories from creators with more diverse backgrounds. Okay, but that's not actually happening. And buying titles in bookstores instead of comic shops. People are buying titles in bookstores. They're buying manga. They're buying graphic novels as the comic book industry continues to be destroyed. It used to be there were 10,000 or more comic book stores. Now there's less than 2,000. It's completely collapsing. So periodical sales are completely being destroyed in comic books. In 2019, this new demo dethroned the more traditional comic book market for the first time. You know, it's funny that they say that this new demographic is seeking out diverse backgrounds of people and buying titles in bookstores. There have been sales in bookstores for comic books for years and years. What's new is including manga sales in their numbers of graphic novels, so they can claim that, well, manga, which is all those Japanese reprints, is part of the success of comic books. It's not. Sales have dropped off tremendously. There are a lot of sales that are now being done into libraries, into other channels, mass market channels, through Scholastic, does a couple of $100 million a year.
but those are a lot of books that are just bought like libraries. There's no accountability for them being resold. Obviously, they're just stuck on a shelf somewhere and eventually thrown away. Somebody might read them. So yes, comic book stores are dying. The periodical market is dying because they're producing comics that people don't want to buy. And if you produce comics that people don't want to buy, people will continue to buy them out of habit and out of just redos of characters that they once really cared about, but no longer. So that's the story. A comic book industry reckons with abuse claims. To just say that it's the comic book industry that has a problem when it's basically irresponsible freelancers getting drunk and partying together, and then claiming that they don't like what happens at those parties, as if none of this ever happened at other college parties or other weirdo parties that these guys have with drugs and alcohol outside of the comic book industry, is kind of ridiculous. Again, if you want to support my work, collegeofthedead.com. Get a copy of College of the Dead Graduation Day, where college costs you an arm and a leg. 48 pages, full color, ready to ship, an ongoing series. We're currently working on the third book in this series, College of the Dead Spring Break. And sign up at epicmermaids.com for the mailing list for The Mermaids. You will get notified when the full color Epic Mermaid Fantasy Game of Thrones is available on Indiegogo. I will see you again soon with another video, and if I don't see you, I will miss you.